Good afternoon. This is Dr. Rich Bernardo, the author of Alchemy, the Leadership Simulation, back in my alchemy lab with my good buddy, the unknown alchemist, behind me as he continues to work hard to transform lead into gold. Alchemy, the Leadership Simulation, is not meant to turn lead into gold. Uh, uh, Actually, I'm not sure anyone's been able to do that yet, so much as to turn people into gold metaphorically, insofar as they will be able to transform themselves into gold and into a high-powered, energetic, effective individual. By in turn be able to transform the people with whom they work into the same kinds of individuals, and by extension and idealistically speaking, that they'll have the skills to transform everyone they touch in order for society to be a better place. And it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. Nonetheless, the simulation we feel has all the elements in it to take you to the next place. As you also know, this website, which has hosts of links, and we'll have more links before too long, to help you get good at the role-taking expectancy more than anything else. And that role-taking expectancy particularly is important, as we've already said, in the specialization that you've been assigned. In your case, you've been assigned to be a theory U, that is to say the letter U, / the design thinker. Now, if you're in the education and leadership team, that would be the pupil personnel director, which you've already described in another video. If you're in the world out there team, you are the Steve Jobs character. You might expect it, or you might find out that other folks will also be playing that role if we need to expand the numbers of people taking on different roles according to the number of participants who are in this particular simulation. And that could change. But those are the two individuals in either of the two teams who may be collaborating with each other from time to time, and more importantly, will be working with their colleagues in their individual groups to, you should pardon an old-fashioned expression, to turn them on, to turn them into thinkers, and even more than that, to be creative thinkers. Creativity is not a topic or a skill set particularly nurtured, generated, supported by many organizations. It's a lot easier for everybody to kind of fall into line and follow the party line rather than to have the courage or the encouragement to step out and away from what people ordinarily think, to dare to create something that we haven't thought of creating in the first place. History is replete with people who have gotten in trouble for that. And probably less replete, but certainly I think we can all think of folks who might have been painted into a corner or drummed out of a group because they dared to say something that wasn't the party line. So your job is to teach folks how to be creative. A quick example, a very quick example, would be if you were to ask a group to name a ship, the first thing you're going to get is the Santa Maria or the Mayflower or something along those lines. You'll have to wait a while before somebody gets over to the Starship Enterprise or to the Millennium Falcon, for that matter, to update myself a bit, let alone for someone to get over to citizenship, leadership. Those are the things that don't necessarily occur to folks if they're thinking in a linear kind of way. And your job, again, is to get folks to think outside of linear. I hate this phrase, but here it comes, out of the box. Now, we're largely basing this on one individual, but there'll be other individuals you'll find in the websites that you can round out your mastery of. And that would be Otto Scharmer, who is the author, the developer of something called The Theory U, who really identifies this process very well. And again, we'll have another video that will give you some places to go check that out. I'm just going to give you a quick scenario to consider, very quick. just to give you some kind of guideline in order for you to understand how this process may play out in a scenario. So you have a group in this, and let's say you are the PPS director, and they're stuck on trying to figure out ways to meet the needs of the growing population of English language learners. Simply isn't enough room in the district anymore or in the building. Teachers haven't been particularly well trained, nor do they know how to work with students who have limited English capability, if any at all. And the frustration is thick in the room. And there's lots of folks ready to throw up their arms and say, this can't happen. We just don't have the capacity. Let's go find the best English language learner teacher we can, which is typically what educators will do. They'll go find a specialist to take the burden off the other folks to take care of this. And in many ways, that couldn't be that's probably the worst way to handle a lot of this. Nonetheless, that's the way things ordinarily go. And so we talk about Sharma, and Sharma, again, if you can visualize a you, Sharma, first of all, would find ways to get folks to think differently by shedding some old habits. That quick example I gave you a moment ago about name a ship, believe it or not, begins to soften some of the crust around people's thinking so they can peel away to get into a more flexible thinking than they are typically used to. So the first thing you need to do is work them through what Sharma calls downloading. I would say ridding is a better word, getting rid of old habits and starting to suspend their beliefs. Now, this is where I'm going to concentrate for the moment, which would mean you're going to need to find ways to enable the people whom you work with in your teams, and even across teams for that matter, to access three sets of mind. First one is open mind. Second is open heart. And the third is open will. So you're going to need to point out times when people, and you may have to point it out to some of your colleagues, when they're still stuck in the old crust, and give them hints or ways for them to think about an issue that you're trying to consider in your conversation that differently from how you typically would do that. That would be opening your mind. That's hard enough, but even much more deeply difficult is to open their hearts. And I stopped on that for a moment because you need to let that marinate for a moment. That's when people, with whom you work, have to take the deep dive and consider the feelings that are part of the issues that are at play. Quick example in the scenario I'm painting for you is, well, they don't want to open their heart because it might mean they need to recognize that they aren't doing things that they certainly have the capacity to do, but don't want to do for one reason or another. And they need to open their hearts to really allow them to empathize with the needs of the people whom they're serving and the colleagues with whom they're trying to interact, to recreate the reality that's afflicting them right now. Now, once you bring them through an open mind, and can drill down to open heart, you then move to the important place where the will changes. The will as in the purpose. And they recognize the old habits don't work, the old ways of thinking don't work, that they recognize these old ways of approaching the issue actually hurt the people trying to make it happen in the first place, as well as hurt, in this case, the needs of the students within the building or the district. And they deliberately have gotten rid of all those negatives and now have an open will, which is to say they have a clean, collective, deep, I emphasize that word, deep desire to what Sharma calls to presence. That is to say, to connect to the real issue they want to get to. And they recognize that change is necessary for the good of the all, for the good of those students, for the good of themselves. And so you have to kind of play a spiritual confessor to some extent. I don't want to overstate that, but you're really playing with processes that go on in the group. that are always present in any group, any party you're at, anytime you played baseball in the street with somebody. There was always processes in place that uh, sometimes very rigidly held people in place that need to be scraped away, and new ways need to be looked at in order to make it right. That's your job, and the only way you're going to be able to make that job work is for you to accept those very issues of open mind, open heart, and open will. So I wish you well. Your job is harder than most, actually, and probably as important or more important than most for that matter as well.